Tonight on Uncommon Mysteries, we delve into another enigma of the uncommon, this time one of legacy and community transformation. How one individual's contributions can profoundly impact the lives of many. Join us as we uncover the story of Paul Allen.
There is nothing common about Paul Allen. His bright mind, his generous heart, his commitment to Wichita, his personal leadership has galvanized the workforce at AGH. I think everybody in Wichita knows that company has a true commitment to volunteering, charitable giving, and lending their technical expertise so that others may benefit from everything they know.
From the early days, my parents were always involved in the community. My father stayed in the school district, became superintendent, small town, 500 people, part one. There were difficult decisions over those times. He, at one point, consolidated 2 small town school districts. My mother was the real dynamo. And she took on a role on the city council. Her particular area we always smile about was the fire department. Both of them had a knack of making hard decisions and getting tough things done, and really not to alienate people. I would say if I have people skills today, probably largely my parents.
So I had lunch today with some business leaders, and we were talking about Paul Allen. Everybody said, wow, what a great choice. He truly is an uncommon citizen. He lives his philanthropy. He lives in knowing how to give back. But if you were to sit down and ask Paul his greatest passion at Wichita State, it would not be bricks and mortar. It would be people. He remembers how impactful the business school faculty was in his personal life and helped create that path for him to be a business leader in our community. Go, Paul.
I actually started the university with the idea that I was going to be the next Marlin Perkins, because I always thought that looked like a lot of fun to be a zoologist.
The coils off. He doesn't crush bone, but he'll keep squeezing till breath and circulation are completely gone.
After about a year, I realized that was a fun hobby, but not a vocation for me. So I had been interested in business all my life. Accounting represented an opportunity to learn the language of business. In 1987, we were part of a large international firm, and that firm decided to merge with an even larger international firm. And at that point, we saw an opportunity to practice different. We felt like if we set up a practice where we focused on our client success, not our own, but our client success, and that we were part of the community and that we reinvested in the community that we lived and worked in, that our own success would just naturally follow. And if there's any legacy that the founding partners would point to, it's that legacy of that mindset that, take care of the clients, take care of the community, good things will happen to you, don't worry about it.
As I think about Paul, I was taken back to a commercial I used to see when I was little, and it was the E.F. Hutton commercial.
What'd your broker say?
Well, my broker's E.F. Hutton, and E.F. Hutton says,
when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen.
At the heart of Paul is really a true servant leader. He listens intently, and when he speaks, people listen to what he says, which is incredible leadership for our community.
I was asked to interview with several offices in major metropolitan areas, and I politely declined. And my boss said, well, why? I said, well, because I'm going back to Wichita. And I told him, I said, you probably wouldn't understand, being from New York, but it's people and a sense of community. I think Wichita's more unusual, and people here think it is. Today, I look out my window, it's a totally different view than it was when I moved in this building in, I think, 88. I think it's a real testament to what this community can do when they decide to change something.
And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is how a man who set out to follow in the giant footsteps of his parents ended up leaving a pair of his own. And though we've uncovered much tonight, one question remains. How many of us will take up the challenge to leave our mark on the world as indelibly as Paul Allen? In Wichita, the answer seems to be blowing in the wind, a wind of change and optimism.